genre of classical to jazz was I heard Dave Brubeck, and he was sort of classical. And I listened to him one night, and I said, hey, I think I can do that. Little did I know it wasn't that easy to learn that.
You went home and said, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
this ain't working out the same way."
No, and then, but that got me. Uh, the reason I had trouble was because at
Hi,
that time.
welcome here, Reggie, to the Quality of Life programming. This is a special segment that we have in every program that speaks about the importance of each individual's experience. And we call this I Was Here. It's the I Was Here segment. And what I've been doing is inviting all of the wonderful people that I've been blessed to encounter whose stories inspire and intrigue so many people, and you being someone who is what we would consider a master of his destiny and has so highly developed in terms of your life path. We just wanted to invite you here, and I'm so grateful you had time. You could make the time. I know you're very, very busy to come and have a chat with us. So I don't know where we start with you because there's a lot of material. I got your bio, I
Oh,
got
I
your
see.
all of your information, but there's how many years literally have you been on stage now? Or performing
Oh,
or playing?
stage, I don't know. I started performing at the age of 25. I consider myself a full-fledged jazz musician. So that means I started late.
Okay.
Okay, I was born, so that everyone knows how old I am. I was born. I was born in 1938
Yes.
in July, and the first thing I remember was the year 1945. The tragedy was Franklin Delano Roosevelt died. That was
Mm.
1945. Uh, there was always a piano around because my mother and father both played piano. My father's name was Billy Moore Jr. He was an arranger for Jimmy Lunsford and Charlie Barnett and Jimmy Dorsey,
Wow.
and I probably took my first lessons not from him, but I don't even remember learning notes and eighth notes and so forth. I started with classical because there was no jazz around when I started learning the piano. I had classical lessons from my aunt.
Mm.
Then later I took lessons from my father. And then actually I went to school for electrical engineering because I didn't think I was going to be a musician. I
Oh.
didn't think, uh, but at that time I wasn't playing jazz. I was just playing normal classical music. Uh, I auditioned and got into a high school of music and art. That
Okay.
school later turned into the School of Performing Arts, which you might have seen
Of
on
course,
motion
everybody
picture
has
Fame.
fame. No.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
And
live.
but I was at that time in high school. I was playing. I started with clarinet, and then I played trombone because you couldn't just bring a piano into the school. Then later, when I went to music and art, um, there were so many good pianists. I mean, geniuses, people that had been playing classical lessons since they were 2 years old.
Mm.
Like I would ask somebody, could you play Chopin's, I don't know, prelude or whatever it was? And they would say, yeah, what key do you want me to play it in? Like they could play it in every key. They had
Oh
perfect
no.
pitch. Great. So I didn't think I was going to be a pianist. Then before I graduated from that school, my parents moved to Westbury, Long Island. I was in another band. I played trombone, basically. Then a group of people, students, got together and we formed a little trio or something like that. It was more like a Dixieland trio.
Mm.
But then one day, the piano player didn't show up, and I was the only one in the band that knew how to play piano. So I took over and I sat down,
Oh, okay.
and I remember looking at the music, and the song was How High the Moon, and I looked at
Ugh.
the chords,
Classic.
and I saw G, and I said, I know how to play G, and so my piano playing started blossoming from there. I got more interested in it.
Yeah.
Um, then I still didn't think I was going to be a musician, so I went to college
Mm.
to enroll in science. And that was a good thing because in college, I learned how to learn theory.
Hmm.
There's a lot of theory, a lot of advanced math.
Yep.
Einstein's theory of relativity, partial equations, stuff like that. So that finally, in years later, when I got to study music theory, it was a piece of cake because after that, there was no problem with theory. What the math did for me was a big thing. It enabled me to learn the difference between just using my ear and putting numbers on data, notes.
Hmm.
And once you put numbers on things, you can see patterns. And once you see patterns, it makes everything much easier. So instead of a note being, C, D, E, it became 1, 2, 3.
Hmm.
The difference between C, D, E, and 1, 2, 3 is that you can see a relationship between the numbers. So that was how that started. And then when I was in the college, there was one pianist who was in the uh, uh, music, studying music in the band,
Hmm.
but I was in the engineering department. But when the music department had a concert, they would call me to play because I could play better than the pianist that was in the music department.
I'm
So
sure.
that got me started. And as you know, college is not free in the States,
Nope.
so I had to support myself by playing gigs.
Hmm.
So I found myself doing more and more of that. I finally became a professional pianist because while I was in school, I had an offer to go to St. Thomas for 2 weeks. I
Hmm.
thought it was going to be 2 weeks, but it turned out to be 2 years because
Okay.
they liked it so much.
Long
And then
stint.
when I came back out of St. Thomas, I got married down there and so forth and so forth.
Uh-huh. So that
Uh,
was part of it.
yeah,
Had to be a
I came
reason.
back, but I left my wife down there.
Oh, okay.
I came back, and by that time, I was so far behind in electronics that was it. At that time, the transistor was just coming in, so you have to appreciate how old I was. In those days, we had vacuum tubes, and I could design vacuum tube amplifiers and things like that, but I knew nothing about transistors.
Ah.
So then that was my music career. I was still playing trombone in a band, and I was playing trombone in big bands and in theater productions. But I was always better than the pianist that
Mm-hmm.
was in the big band.
Mm-hmm.
So that was that.
You were really advanced always.
Okay.
Mm.
Uh,
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. No, basically, no. I'm just fascinated because there are certain aspects of your conversation right now that I was aware of, and it is being one of your students, one of the people who has worked with you but started off. You're one of my mentors in jazz.
Hmm.
You are my main mentor in jazz for nearly going on a very long period of time also now. And I knew about you always said music is math, math is music, to remember that. But there are other aspects of like your development that pre Europe, that or
Uh,
pre New York or pre international, the international scene, that I wasn't as aware of. Can you just tell us a little bit about being a young jazz musician, like in the New York City scene back in what was it, the 60s, the 70s, the 60s?
60s and 70s.
Because you said you
Okay.
used to play in DC, used to play
I
up and
played
down
all over.
Easter. Yeah.
I was born in New York, but
Mm.
I lived in Florida. I lived in different places. My musical ability really blossomed when I started working with singers. My first professional singer was Anita O'Day,
Oh,
and I
yes.
worked with her in Washington D.C. And by that time, I was just starting, and she actually complained because I was not doing certain things. She would sing, and then there'd be a blank, and she said, "Don't leave me hanging out there," and blah blah blah.
Hmm.
But I got better because I met her maybe 5 years later or 2 years later, and then she slapped me on the back and bought me a drink because
See,
by that time I was
coming
on that.
along.
So some of the singers I worked with were Johnny Hartman, uh, Anita O'Day, Nancy Wilson set in, Dakota Staten, Betty Carter.
Yes.
All of these really helped me develop my ability to accompany singers.
Hmm.
So that was it. The horn players, I think one of your questions might be what was biggest thrill in my life.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, you have so many. When you have such a vast, range to speak about in terms of experience.
Uh-huh.
But out of all of the things in your life, like New York, the international scene, Singapore, you've been everywhere, Reggie. You've been a lot of places, Reggie.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the highlights? What are the moments now at this point in your life? 80 to 82 years young.
82 years,
You're
82 and a half.
82 and a half years young.
Okay.
What are the things that are ringing out now? It's really
Well,
sticking with
the,
you.
the problem with being 82 is that you don't remember everything. So that is what's going on. But some of the things, one big thing I remember was being in Paris, working in a club with a bassist, Alex Lane, and in walks Dexter Gordon
Wow.
in the audience. So I still remember we were playing Green Dolphin Street. And then I looked around and I saw Dexter pull out his horn while we were playing. Then he slowly started playing with us. And he was still at the table. And then he kind of, Dexter could drink a little bit. He
Okay.
came up, I'll stand up a little bit, and he kind of wobbled over. And then he was playing with us. And I couldn't understand, I couldn't believe some of the notes that were coming out of his horn. I said, if I were drinking, I could never play that much. And it was so melodic. So Dexter Gordon sat in with us for a few tunes.
Okay.
Okay. So I always, as a joke, I said I didn't sit in with Dexter Gordon. Dexter Gordon sat in with me. So that was great. That was
He
one of the
dropped
things.
on by.
Yeah. So that's one of the things. But some of the other things, it's not in my memory bank right now. But there was a lot of good moments.
There's some video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess that was one of the highs. The highlight of my learning career was my classical teacher. His name was Cornelius Strongilos, and he taught me. He was one of the classical teachers that appreciated that I played jazz.
Yes.
And he taught me classical, learning harmony, which none of the other teachers had done. They just taught me notes. Don't play F, play G. Don't do this, play that. He understood chords, and he understood the value of chords, and he understood the value of harmony. And I learned from him that to understand the theory of a classical piece is how you develop the classical piece, because you have to know when a cadence happens. You have to know when something is leading into. It's not always on the paper. So that was another highlight of my life, is to have studied with him.
Yeah, I mean that education and mentorship is everything. I mean, I look at my life now, having moved on in life, and look back and realize that it's like building bricks or building stones, building the foundation, building up into a real building. And you look around at a certain time in life, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is a real infrastructure. This is developed. And then you look and see this stone had this person's imprint and what they gave you. It's all what people give you. It's all the exchange, especially in creativity, the exchange of the creativity. And the what we do is infuse others with our legacy, and they continue on energetically. Your legacy continues on through those you touch. Now, on that note, I have the pleasure of knowing your lovely wife and your lovely daughter here in
Yeah,
Europe,
right.
and she's also wonderful, Connie Moore, a wonderful jazz singer, wonderful teacher as well. And I know that for me, out of all these years, if I ask you, what do you most love or what have you most enjoyed about life, knowing you for almost okay, I'll say it, 30 years, I know that to be on the top of the list. But what are some other things in life you just have really enjoyed about your journey thus far?
I know there's a lot, and to recall that, that's the problem. But at this age, I'm interested in actually passing on the knowledge that I have.
Yeah.
Like I learned different styles of music: gospel, Latin, pop, this. And even now, I'm sort of passing on the gospel, the traditional gospel, because that's not taught now. That's something you have to feel. Uh, I enjoy doing that. I enjoy teaching from the basis of sharing, passing something on, not for the money or something like that. Okay, some of the horn players I played with were Benny Golson, and I can't think of some of the others, but a lot of good uh, players I met. Like in St. Thomas, I met Horace Silver. I played opposite Ahmad Jamal. Uh, what got me really interested from the genre of classical to jazz was I heard Dave Brubeck, and he was sort of classical. And I listened to him one night, and I said, hey, I think I can do that. Little did I know it wasn't that easy to learn that.
You went home and said, "Wait a minute,
Yeah.
this ain't working out the same way."
No, and then, but that got me. Uh, the reason I had trouble was because at that point I was still using my ear to play. It was good. I developed my ear,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
another memorial moment was when I was working in a nightclub out in the Bronx, uh, and there were two bands, and in the other band, two players from Chicago just came in, and that was Ron Carter and Herbie Hancock,
Yes.
and they came and sat in my room, not
Mm-hmm.
Ron Carter but Herbie Hancock,
Mm-hmm.
and he sat down and he played. Uh, uh, Once I had a secret love, like this is,
Ah,
and he just wiped me out. I said, "Wow!"
wow.
And then he played Watermelon Man before it was out
Watermelon
there. Yeah,
before
he
it
said,
was
"This is my
watermelon.
hit." Boom, and then
Yeah.
so that was a something I really remembered. Inspired. I couldn't play as well as Herbie, but I said maybe one day.
Mm-hmm.
So some of my big piano influences would be starting with Bud Powell,
Okay.
then maybe going up to in between Dave Brubeck.
Mm-hmm.
I love Ahmad Jamal, but I can't imitate him. He's so
Oh,
unique.
yeah.
Bill Evans,
Yes.
Chick
Yeah.
Corea.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got into the modern jazz by studying with a great pianist named Richie Byrack.
Okay.
He taught me the pentatonic scales and how to play in, out, and the modern. And if I had to put a label on it, it's called intervallic recognition of notes.
Okay.
So you cannot recognize an interval unless you give it a number. So that's the difference. How far is 3 from 1? How far is 5 from 6? And so forth.
Okay. Proximity. There's one thing I thought of when you were speaking just now that I just wanted you to touch on. You said that since 20, you've been an artist, a professional artist for 24, 25 years. And
No, I started at the age of 25.
I mean, sorry, what am I saying? Since 24,
Yeah.
25 years old. Okay. But is there anything that you could say to people out there, artists or people who love or have a passion for something, anything in life, not just music, but including music, about pursuing what your passion is in love, against all odds, and dealing with and challenging adversity in order to live your life authentically? Because you, for me, are someone who I have witnessed and watched live their lives authentically. I mean, what do you think it takes? Courage, knowing
Well, sometimes
oneself.
it takes luck because sometimes it's the only thing you can do. So you have
Okay.
to live that. If I had to do anything else, of course, I like technology. I like computers. I'm really into. I have six. I have two iPhones, two computers,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah,
things
we
like that.
know
And so
you're ahead of
I would.
everybody.
My passion now is because of uh, the COVID
This
thing.
present situation. Yeah, COVID.
Yeah, is it used to be successful, you'd have to have a record.
Yep.
Okay, I had two records, but now it takes more than that. You have to have a hit record. But
Yep.
now records are sort of out.
Mm-hmm.
Streaming is going out.
Yep.
So right now I'm teaching at the Jazz Institute of Berlin,
Yes.
and I ask the students, what do you want to do when you go out of school? I mean, you've had 4 years of training and stuff like that. I don't think when you get out of the school you want to approach a club owner and say, "Hey, can I have a gig?" No. So
Not the way to do it.
I think the future is for everybody is composition.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my belief is there's no such thing, no difference between composition and improvisation. You use the same method. So,
Mm-hmm.
in order to fulfill your future, I would advise everybody to try to write something, write a right composition.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm very involved in trying to learn orchestration. I do know
Mm-hmm.
orchestration, but I want to write for films.
Yes.
And I've written for one film over here in Germany, but
Mm-hmm.
I, this is what I'm trying to pursue now, and I like to teach that,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know what to tell people now because the situation keeps changing. You know, I say do this, do that, and then all of a sudden
I think that
that
you're
becomes a
telling.
dinosaur.
I think that what you're saying right now, and we can use this as an analogy for everyone, no matter what it is that they're doing, whether they're musicians or whether they're what doctors, lawyers, accountants. I don't care what
Mhm.
it is. Is the wisdom of ages coming from your mouth is being channeled through you, which is improvisation. You must reinvent. You must challenge yourself to improvise and to find a new way and to create and to reach
Right.
in within yourself and create new opportunities, new avenues, not just for yourself, but for others, as you're saying. And through teaching in whatever way that you can, sharing what it is that you learn. And while you're learning, always realize that as you teach, you are learning. And that is the most important thing about teachers. The greatest teachers are those who, as you just were saying, are constantly hungry to learn. And this is what I see in you. My mother was a teacher. It
Uh
was
huh.
the same. She was constantly hungry for knowledge, reading books, wanting to know what
Right.
was going on. You've mastered Mac. You have all of the top technology because you keep on reaching forward for each day for what life can bring you, and not letting the word stop or no stop you from living each moment fully
Mm.
in your development. In closing, if you could give us here in the quality of life, and this has been really lovely, really, really wonderful to talk to you like this. And um, I was here in this segment. We say, I was here. If you could give us 3 words, just 3 simple words or phrases, or 3 things or 3 words that best describe Reggie for the world.
Okay, I'm going to have to reduce those 3 words to 2 words.
Okay. Okay. We'll
My,
take that. You gave
my,
us a lot. You gave us a lot of information. So we'll say,
okay,
okay.
my 2 words, which is actually on my the cover or the back of my album that I did for Mainstream Records. The 2 words that motivate me are straight ahead. Straight ahead.
Straight ahead.
Keep going. Straight
Straight
ahead.
ahead.
So
Keep
I
on.
can't make that into 3 words without stretching it, but straight ahead
Just
means don't
go.
stop.
Well,
I
that's
mean,
4. Go straight ahead.
I still remember what Jesse Owens, the Olympic runner, said. He said, "Don't look back. Somebody might be gaining on you.
Mm-hmm.
Keep going. Go straight ahead."
Mm-hmm.
My other thing is to accept mistakes because you learn from mistakes. One of the big things I ask my students is when they make a mistake and they say, "I thought 2 plus 2 is 5."
Mm-hmm.
I say, "No, 2 plus 2 is 4." Okay. They say, "No, now I know 2 plus 2 is 4." But there's one more question. Why did you think 2 plus 2 is 5?
Mm.
If you find that answer, you are on your way.
Brilliant. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been our real privilege and honor to have with us today here in Berlin in the studio, right here in our regular spaces of what we do, which is to rehearse, is the wonderful, the illustrious, the brilliant
Okay.
Master Reggie Moore. Thank you,
Thank you,
Reggie.
Ziggy, for having me.
Thanks. Of course.
Thank you.
Always.